So this is writing in slope-intercept form day 3. So remember, slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b, and m represents the slope, b represents the y-intercept. So we've talked about these steps a few times, but in order to write the equation of a line in slope-intercept form, we first have to find the slope, then find the y-intercept, and then we substitute both m and b into y equals mx plus b. So for example 1, writing the slope-intercept form given slope and 1 point. So now we have the slope. What we don't have is the y-intercept. So we're going to use the slope and the point that we're given to help us solve for b. So in order to do that, we need to rewrite our slope-intercept form. So y equals mx plus b. And we know m, and x and y in the equation in general, those stay there consistently, but we don't have, we're missing b. So we're going to take m equals negative 1/3. We'll plug that into the equation where m is. And then we're also going to take 9 and 4 and plug those in for x and y so that b is our only variable that's left over and that we're able to solve for it. So negative 1/3 will go into the equation where m is. And then for our point, the x-coordinate is 9 and the y-coordinate is 4. So that means that we're going to take 9 and we're going to substitute it into the equation where x is. And then we're going to take 4 and substitute it into the equation where y is. So we're going to rewrite the equation with m and x and y plugged in. So 4 is going in for y. So 4 equals negative 1/3 is going in for m. And then 9 is going in for x plus b. And then we need to simplify and isolate b in order to solve for it. So the 4 we'll leave alone for right now. Negative 1/3 times 9. So anytime you divide or anytime you multiply something by 1/3, it's the same thing as dividing by 3. So those are interchangeable. Multiplying by 1/3 and dividing by 3 are the same thing. We can also think, what is 1/3 of 9? 1/3 of 9 is 3. But since we have a negative multiplied by a positive, our product will be negative. So remember, when you multiply one negative by one positive, your product is negative. And then plus b. And then now to isolate b, I want to get it by itself. I have to undo this negative 3, so I have to add 3 to both sides. So adding 3 cancels out this negative 3, and then 4 plus 3 is 7. And then I have to bring down my equals b. So we just solved for b. We got b equals 7. So now I know what m and b are, and I'm able to go forward to step 3 where we substitute it into y equals mx plus b. So I'll rewrite my slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, but this time we know m and we know b, so we can plug those in. So y equals, instead of m, I'll substitute in negative 1/3 times x, and then instead of b, I'm going to substitute in a plus 7. Because we just found out that b was 7, so y equals negative 1/3 x plus 7. So for the next example, we're given that m equals 2, and we're given a point negative 8, negative 9. So if we're given the slope, and then we're given an extra point, we can use that point and our slope to solve for our y-intercept. So first we have to start with y equals mx plus b, our equation. So our m is 2. We're going to substitute that into the equation where m is. The x-coordinate of our point is negative 8. We're going to substitute that into the equation where x is. And the y-coordinate of our point is negative 9. We're going to substitute that into our equation where y is. And that'll leave us just with b, so we'll be able to solve for it. So negative 9 will go in for y. So negative 9 equals 2 is going in for m. So 2 times x which for x we're going to substitute in -8, and then plus b. So now we'll simplify the right side. We have to multiply 2 times -8. So same thing as last time, we have a positive times a negative. So one positive and one negative creates a negative product. So 2 times -8 is -16 plus b. And then to get b by itself, I need to figure out a way to cancel out this -16. So I'm going to add 16 to both sides. And then when I add -9 plus 16, so I have a negative and a positive. So when we're adding negatives and positives, we find the difference between these two numbers, which the difference between 9 and 16 is 7. And then we take the sign from the larger number. So because 16 was positive and it was the larger of the two numbers, our sum is +7. So -9 plus 16 is +7. And then the -16 plus 16 cancels out, and I can bring down my b. So 7 equals b, or b equals 7. Either way, we've solved for b. So now we know m, we know b, so we can substitute into y equals mx plus b. So we'll rewrite our equation or our line, y equals mx plus b, and then we'll substitute in m and b. So y equals, instead of m, I'm going to substitute in 2. And then times x, that x will always be there. And then instead of plus b, I'm going to substitute in 7. So y equals 2x plus 7 is the equation of my line. So for this example, we were given slope and then an extra point. For the next example, we're not going to be given slope, we're just going to be given 2 points. So the first step that we're going to have to follow, if we go back up to these steps, is we first have to find slope, then we can find y-intercept, and then we can substitute them in. So remember, when I'm finding slope between 2 points, I have to find the change in y over the change in x. So we'll say m equals change in y over change in x. And then I can count to find my change. So my change in y, I'm going from 7 to 10, so I'm going up 3. So my change in y is +3. And then my change in x, I'm going down from 4 to 3, so I'm going down 1. So my change in x is -1. So whenever we have 1 in the denominator, we can get rid of that denominator and we can just write our slope as a whole number. But because this is 3 over -1, this is like saying 3 divided by -1. So that becomes -3. So my slope is -3. And now that we've solved for slope and we found slope, this problem becomes just like the two problems up here. So notice with these problems we were given slope and then a point. Now we have slope and we technically have 2 points, but we only need to use one of them in order to solve for our y-intercept. So we're going to solve for it the same way. We'll start with y equals mx plus b. And then I'm going to substitute my slope -3 in for m. And then I'm going to pick one of my points to substitute in for x and y. It doesn't matter which one. You can pick whichever one that you want. So I'm going to use the point 3, 10. So I'm going to substitute in 3 for x because that's the x coordinate. And then I'm going to substitute in 10 for y because that's my y coordinate. So it doesn't matter which point you pick. You just have to pull from the same point both times. So I couldn't use a 3 and then a 7. They would both have to come from the same point. So 10 is going in for y. So 10 equals -3 is my slope, so that'll go in for m. So 10 equals -3 times x, which for x I'm going to substitute in 3, plus b. And then we'll simplify our right side so that we can isolate b. So 10 equals -3 times 3. A negative times a positive is a negative. So negative 3 times 3 is negative 9 plus b. And then to isolate b, I need to add this negative 9 over to cancel it out over here. So I'm going to add 9 to both sides. And then 10 plus 9 is 19. And then the negative 9 plus 9 cancels out. So 19 equals b. So now we have m and b. So we're ready to write the equation of our line. So we're going to substitute it into slope-intercept form. Again, y equals mx plus b. So y equals negative 3 will go in for m. So negative 3 times x, that x will always be there, and then plus b, which in this case b is 19. So plus 19. So y equals negative 3x plus 19. And then one more example problem that's going to be just like this one, where we're only given 2 points. So we're going to have to find a slope between those 2 points first before we can substitute it into our equation to solve for b. So the slope between 1, 8 and negative 1, negative 6, my slope formula is m equals change in y over change in x. So the change in y from 8 to negative 6. So I know it's tricky when we're going from a positive to a negative or a negative to a positive, but think I have to go down 8 to get to 0, and then I'll have to go down another 6 to get to negative 6. So all together, I'm going down 18. So one more time, I'm going down 8 to get to 0, and then down another 6 to get to negative 6. So I'm going down 14. And you can always print out a number line, make yourself a number line so you can just count. It might make it easier. And then my change in x, I'm going from 1 to negative 1. So if I go from 1 down to 0, that's down 1, and then down again to negative 1, so that's down 2. So my change in x is I'm going down 2. And then negative 14 over negative 2, we can reduce this because negative 14 is actually divisible by negative 2, and it's 7. So remember, a negative divided by a negative is a positive, and then 14 divided by 2 is 7. So negative 14 over negative 2 reduces to 7. And then now we have our slope. So our m is 7. So we're going to use the same strategies that we did before, where we take our slope and then we pick one of these points to substitute in as our x and y so that we can solve for b. So we'll start with y equals mx plus b. So 7 is going to go in for our m because that's our slope. And then for our x and y, you can pick whichever point you want. I would probably pick the positive point because it might be a little bit easier. So I'm going to use 1, 8. So I'm going to substitute in 1 for x and 8 for y, because that's my y coordinate. So my new equation is 8's going to go in for y equals m, so 7, times x, so 1 is going to go in for x, plus b. And then I need to simplify the right side so that I'm able to solve for b. So 8 equals 7 times 1 is 7, plus b. And then I have to subtract 7 from both sides in order to cancel out this positive 7 right here. So minus 7, 8 minus 7 is 1. 7 minus 7 cancels out. And then we bring down our b. So we end up with b equals 1. And then now we have m and b. So we have the information we need to write our line. So we'll start with y equals mx plus b, and then we'll substitute in m and b. So it's y equals mx, so 7x, and then plus b, so plus 1. So the equation of our line is y equals 7x plus 1.